Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our conversation today around HIV organizations doing justice work. My name is Marvell Terry, and I'm with AIDS United. Please let us know where you are joining us from. Please share this important discussion, this necessary discussion, as we observe Juneteenth, Freedom Day. Please share this on your timeline, call your friends, call your colleagues at work, and let them know that this is a very important and interesting conversation. I have some amazing colleagues with me today who will get an opportunity to introduce themselves. But I first, again, wanted to say thank you so much for joining this Juneteenth conversation hosted by the Southern HIV Impact Fund at AIDS United. The Southern HIV Impact Fund is a collaborative fund at AIDS United created by funders concerned about AIDS, where they gather private and public funders to really focus on funding organizations in the South. And I might say social justice organizations in the South with intersectional work around HIV. And so we are excited to host this conversation. I'm the senior HIV program manager for the Southern HIV Impact Fund, and I'm excited to host this conversation. Again, my name is Marvell, he, him, his, again, senior program manager of the Southern HIV Impact Fund, and I will pass it over to my colleagues who will introduce themselves. We will have Marilyn go first and then Jacoby.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad that you're able to join us today. And my name is Marilyn Francis, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. And I am the Director of Health Policy and Research at AIDS United.
Glad to have you.
And I will go next. Hi, everybody. I'm so honored and ecstatic to be here. Thank you so much for extending this opportunity to me to be able to share my story and share my perspective on this topic. I guess I better introduce myself. Jacoby Hunter Wright, pronouns he, him, his. I serve as the senior program manager for the capacity building team for AIDS United, where we support Midwest health departments with the ability to strengthen their integrated HIV care and planning activities, as well as structural interventions, along with a host of other things. So we'll get into that today. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you so much, Jacoby, for joining the Southern Fund and hosting this Juneteenth conversation. Again, everyone, please share this on your timeline. Invite your friends. Let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat box. We are excited that you're joining us today. So because this is a Juneteenth conversation, let's do the framework of what is Juneteenth. And I'm looking at my notes because I definitely want to make sure I get the facts correct around Juneteenth. It's also referred to as Liberation Day, Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, and also Jubilee Day. The Juneteenth day comes from June 19th, 1865, when I believe the last town in the South found out that they were free. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation September the 22nd, 1862, and it went into effect January the 1st, 1863. And it was not until almost 2 years later that Galveston, Texas found out that they were free on June 19, 1865. And so that leads into my question to Marilyn and Jacoby. When was your first time hearing about Juneteenth and where did you hear from?
Okay, well, I'll start off. Well, where I grew up, we always called it Emancipation Day.
Okay.
And yeah, and so actually it wasn't until, I guess, a couple of years ago, well, maybe a little bit longer than that, when I moved to Washington, D.C., and I had heard about that. Even when I lived in San Francisco, I hadn't heard Juneteenth, but yeah, Emancipation Day. So, but yeah, so it's been interesting, and I do like the name.
Yes. Jacoby?
So I'll piggyback up. I had a bit of a different experience being a good old Texas boy, and I say that wholeheartedly. I'm very Southern. I heard about it from as long as I can remember. Like my folks would talk about it. I come from a household where like my father's from the east and my mother's from the south, so it's an educational experience for him, but we were reared to understand what this meant, especially being in Texas. So it was even embedded in like school. Like we in Texas is very different. Like you have to learn everything. Like so in the mornings we would say stand up and salute the flag and I pledge allegiance. Then we would say the Texas pledge and had to learn every song that commemorated the old republic and had to be able to recognize all the flags and all that good stuff. But really hearing about it from my family, but really learning about it, Black History Month, going to a public school, because that was a big thing. Like, oh yeah, Juneteenth is in June, but we're gonna talk about it in February. So we had homework assignments, and we had to do plays and all that good stuff. So it was really an active participation in terms of like how I was exposed and acquired my knowledge about Juneteenth. So,
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Marilyn, did you, which,
No, I was just going to say, yeah, we had it integrated in our school program as well. But as I said, they always called it Emancipation Day and not Juneteenth. So, but the same
and,
thing.
and for me, growing up in Memphis, and I guess our proximity to Texas, I too grew up hearing about Juneteenth, and we had Juneteenth festivals and Juneteenth award ceremonies, and just variations, whatever you could add Juneteenth to, around June 19th, we would definitely have that. And I feel that for the country, this racial awakening, or this racial uproar that happened last summer really gave the country an opportunity to really find out what Juneteenth is about. So, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, we were stuck in a house, we were quarantining, and then we were protesting on the streets. And then Juneteenth happened, and many organizations began to observe the day. And so we're kind of in that next year of it, and many of those organizations, while some have committed to honoring the day, a lot of organizations have not committed to honoring the day. My next question would be, how have you both seen organizations honor this day? How have you seen organizations honor this day? Marilyn or Jacoby?
Well, the places that I've worked, they haven't really honored it, in the way that it's being honored now. And there was some recognition, but there wasn't like the same level of, celebration or, focus on it. But I think because of, like you said, some of the events that have happened over the past year, people are realizing like this is an important part of history. And it should be part, in the workplace as well, be a part of our culture.
so I've had quite a few different experiences with this. So I actually my first job out of college, and I've attended all HBCUs. I'm so proud of them. Proud two Panthers and all that good stuff. Prairie View and Clark. So right out of college, I went in right into corporate America, and it was Juneteenth. I was working for Exxon, logistics company, and I'm so used to there being a something, an acknowledgement, like, hey, it's Juneteenth, let's go. And of course, I was still living in Houston at the time, and Houston is like in proximity, maybe an hour away from Galveston. So I just knew, I'm like, yeah, Juneteenth is about to be a thing. Like it's time to get the grill going. You got the rodeos in town, like everything's coming up. And so, to my surprise, and this was my first introduction to the lack of justice in the workplace, I said, hey, are we allowed to leave early or do a thing for Juneteenth? And my manager, who presented as a white cisgendered woman, what is that? So I, very lovely in my own way explained, this is the day that my folks were freed. It's a celebration. It's the synonymous. It's the Black 4th of July, if you will. I tried to put it in very plain words. She says, "You're lying." I'm like, "What?" it's in the history books, and that really made me realize that American discourse has really contributed to the erasure of Black discourse in terms of history, which that's a whole nother story. So that, and I'm saying this for a reason, that was my introduction to, like, the lack of acknowledgement for something that was such a sacred space for me and my people. But as I transitioned into public health and, working with CBO infrastructures and just specifically in the South, that was acknowledged in so many amazing ways. Like, we would have celebrations at work. We would be given days off, and my boss would, like, "Hey, we're off, but let's go do something." Or even in Dallas, I used to work for a CBO called Abandoned Prosperity, and they would partner with Dallas Southern Pride and just put on a whole shebang for Juneteenth. So it has turned into this really, really big thing. So in a lot of ways, a lot of my professional experiences have either not spoken to it or have spoken to it in amazing ways, which I'm grateful for because it allows me the opportunity to know where the gaps are and how much I'm appreciated. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you both for that. We know that Age United is celebrating its 10th year anniversary this year. So, happy birthday, Age United. And as a grant making and policy organization, last year, we launched the Racial Justice Index. And I would love to hear from Marilyn as we, talk about justice and HIV organizations as Age United is, as we get more into justice work and racial justice work. What is the Racial Justice Index, and what does Age United hope to do with the Racial Justice Index?
Well, the Racial Justice Index, it's still in its early stages, but basically it's founded on the principle that a lot of times organizations, even though they may be doing a lot of work trying to engage communities of color and things like that, that within their organization, they don't necessarily see how there may be some divide in terms of, races within their organization. So the Racial Justice Index Committee has come together. It's part of our Public Policy Council. And what they're doing is really looking at the issues of, the racial justice lens for the HIV movement. And in using that lens, it really demands that we integrate racial justice into our organizations and our political strategies, and also focus on communities who are impacted by the type of work that we do, the leadership and the decision making that's made in these organizations. And also to, root efforts to advance the racial justice lens in the HIV movement, for really going for accountability and, and really wanting to lead communities in the right way. Now, in order to do that, what the committee is doing is putting together a tool that they can do a self-assessment, okay? And the committee will be developing these assessment tools, and it will help organizations understand their shortcomings related to racial justice, so they can effectively address those issues and move forward, and really being able to fully help and effectively help those communities that they're working with, and understanding that diversity within their organizations are important to have those different angles, different aspects of what we're doing and how we're moving forward. And also, when we're looking at policies coming from the federal government, the state government community, that we have those voices in the organization that can give us just that wider scope and understanding about how to address these issues of, inequities, inequalities, and, making sure that you're getting into the diversity and inclusion that is really needed and that a lot of organizations, excuse me, are working for.
Awesome, awesome. I think that sounds very exciting. I want to ask Jacoby, as a senior program manager around capacity building. So we talk about this racial justice index, and I know that it is still in a conception process, but thinking that organizations will get a score or some type of metrics. How do we get organizations to reach their highest potential when doing justice work? You know, what capacity do you think, from your lens, that organizations can use when trying to do justice work? What advice would you give them?
Well, I first want to start off by saying that the Racial Justice Index has been the base of a couple of CBER requests that we've gotten in the past. So I'm like, and of course, me being like, in my infancy stage, I'm like, wait, what is that? We have a thing, we have such a thing. And so, like, when it was explained to me what it was, I'm like, this is like, I can't say what I want to say, but I'm like, I was so excited to hear about like that kind of work. So to hear Marilyn talk about it, I'm like, I'm just so excited about it, being further developed and things like that. But no, it's a thing on the SEBA side. But to answer your question, how do folks begin to address justice issues? And so when I think about it, I think about justice with respect to Juneteenth, but justice has like it's such an umbrella term. So, and I think we do a disservice when we talk about one justice and, delineate the other justices. I talk about gender justice and racial justice and social justice and all that good stuff. But to your point, I think first taking a very mirrored approach, like looking at the demographic makeup of your organization. Because I cannot tell you how many times I go into a space of service to a specific community, and that service does not look like me. It does not present like me. And I walk in confused, and historically, I'm already a bit stigmatized. Me, just the intersection of my identity, as a black man, as a black gay man, like I'm walking in with a certain expectation. I need to connect with something that I can attach to or something that feels like me. And so I've been in spaces where from the front desk to the policeman in the parking lot looks nothing like me. But your mission statement, your professional and personal mission statements and acumen are rooted in we are going to serve these folks. I'm like, you can't possibly serve me and not offer opportunities, you know, to have folks who reflect and present like me service me because that means something to me. So I think really that's a starting point looking at demographic makeups and really being reflective of the populations you serve. And I can't tell you enough how important that means something to folks like me who, come from nothing pretty much. And also, just to add on to that, making sure that you meaningfully involve folks. Like, don't tokenize community and don't put don't put us in these tokenized positions. Like, there's no reason why, folks of color or BIPOC communities should be in one position for 4 or 5 years. It makes no sense. And what justice looks like, don't just hire folks for one position, build into their skill sets, and create pathways for conversations and the ability to build into those skills that they want to have or want to acquire so they can be put on the roadmap to where they want to go or where they feel like they would be of most use. Because that's really important. Like, I can't imagine folks want to be in one position for the rest of their life. Also, just and I know I'm rambling because I could talk about this all day, but no, other like considerations that folks can make is really being culturally sensitive and culturally humble, but not just surface level. Cultural humility is not surface level. I think we do a disservice again to like folks without addressing their intersectionality. So my thing is, you can't address the black part of me without addressing the male part of me and without addressing the man who sleeps with men part of me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you can't just be like, oh, hey, here is a shirt. We support the Black cause. Do you support the LGBT cause? Do you support the male? Like those kinds of things.
Right.
Like, don't negate all the parts of me. Address me as a whole person, because you can get that can get lost in translation, because and it can also become offensive. Like, if I'm coming in and I'm coming in for an intersectional part of myself, if I'm trying to address the part of my identity that needs addressing, and you go straight to the hey, Black man, and I'm just being facetious. I'm like, hold on, like that's not what justice looks like to me. So yeah, just learning how to recognize like the intersections of a person's identity and things like that, and of course those classic diversity, equity, and inclusion practices that I know folks are effortlessly building into as of recently, which to your point, with the whole I call 2020 a looking glass. Everything that happened in 2020 just really opened folks' eyes to what really needs to happen and what hasn't been happening. So, gift and a curse. So those will be my initial offerings in terms of like trying to make sure we address any justice, social justice, racial justice, anything. So.
You mentioned one of our grantee partners with the Southern HIV Impact Fund, About in Prosperity. And I know this weekend, About in Prosperity will host Dallas Juneteenth Black Pride, and it's that merging of me being gay, but me also being a Black identified individual. Jacoby, how does that make you feel? When I look at the logo for the events this weekend, it is the pride symbol, but it's also the Black colors as I have in my background. How does that make you feel that, it's a representation, it's the whole person being represented in those events?
Oh yeah. So I first want to like clarify. So AP partners with DSP. It's so
Okay.
funny when folks like AP store like, oh no, don't say that. AP's partnering with a certain set of folks, but no, AP is very much part of that history, and I'm proud to be a part of that history as well. But no, I get excited, especially thinking about like the work I did with them and the work I'm doing with AU, and just existing like dually existing in both spaces, specifically where like I get to be a part of conversations here, and I've been a part of conversations there, and just seeing like the work that they've done in the beginning, because as we all know, grassroots organizations like they have to leverage everything. So the fact that they leverage everything and they find these partnerships to really give community something to be proud of, not just and they don't even frame it as a this is the gay pride or this is about Black pride. This is celebrating the whole person and celebrating the whole story. Because sometimes folks don't celebrate the journey, no matter how hard or how easy it is, and the journey is part of the process. So I get it's a indescribable feeling. Like I'm very proud. I can't say happy or say like it's boastful. It's proud. I want to say yeah, I did that. Hoorah! Like I go into whole beast mode. Like yes,
Right.
Juneteenth in the South. But no, like they do some amazing work, and I'm like so proud of like just the stuff that they're doing, and it's not only about just the whole celebratory piece of it. Like these kind of things, whether people know it or not, these are attraction mechanisms and entryways into like dialogue and resources that come into the city. Like these events bring in jobs, and they shape the perspective of like a specific city, i.e. Dallas. I'm like, hey, they have some really unique things going here. So let's pull more resources, into like the health issues and like the psychosocial issues and all of that good stuff. So then it really is an effective tool. So it's a duality component to it. Don't get it wrong, don't get it twisted, but it's an amazing thing and it's very much needed. So.
Awesome, awesome. Marilyn, I want to, as we begin to kind of come to a close and wrap the conversation up, I would love to talk about any justice-informed moments, as we talk about the HIV movement and as we look at what appears to be the dismantling of voting rights in our community for Black and Brown folks, mass incarceration, immigration, many justice issues that are before us that we need to fight. But what would you say have been some justice informed moments in the HIV movement that you can highlight, that ties in justice?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's several things. I mean, I think that as a whole, what we've experienced in the past year has made people aware that there is a lot of, inequalities that are going on across different populations. And also, I mean, this year, there's been these moments where people seem to be more aware of the differences, different communities, the gay community, the transgender, and it just, it's been a moment, I think, where people are more willing to listen and help make a change. And I think that, there's a lot of opportunities now I mean, people who are understanding, like, if you really want to have diversity and inclusion, that you really have to have a mechanism for leadership building, teaching people, that education, advocating for the support of access to care to make sure, like in the HIV community, that people do have that access to the care that they need, from prevention to, getting their viral load, suppressed. And so that really has started a lot more conversations about Medicaid expansion, looking at the states that have not expanded Medicaid, especially, what the impact has been during the pandemic and people not being able to go to the clinic. The issues of, I mean, also around access to care, people were like, oh, okay, well, we'll do telehealth, Okay, not everybody has a laptop. Not everybody has access to the internet, We see that in schools, we see that in healthcare. And so the communities and some of the IT companies are realizing, like, we need to do something to help these communities, And, but it is that meeting the needs of the community and listening, and what Jacoby was talking about in terms of looking at people as a whole person and having those conversations and that collaboration is so important. And it's like, not just talking to people, it's listening to them, because everybody has a little bit of a different view, and where is the commonality that we can move forward. And I mean, I know sometimes I can be overly optimistic, but I really do believe that in this past year, there's been a lot more thought, and people open to innovative ideas and realizing that one size does not fit all, and that we really do have to listen to the community to make sure that what we put in place meets their needs, meets them where they are. And so as a result, I think of some of this awakening, I mean, more people from, the feds to community groups and those in between, state legislators and stuff like that, are really trying to reach out to their communities. And of course, there's some states that are not quite on that level yet, but with the growing advocacy that's going on, especially on the policy side, I think that they're going to get their voices listened to. It may not be overnight, but I think that as those advocacy groups grow, and that it will help. But we do also have to look at some of those legislations, like you were talking about, that really are a big hamper, like the voting rights thing, the criminalization, not expanding Medicaid. We also have to look at, some of the inequalities for people who are older, HIV and aging, and making sure that they can get the care that they need and get the insurance that they need. And some of these policies can kind of, keep them from being able to access the care that they need. And, but yeah, I mean, I think that there's been several moments, and um, I'm really optimistic that this will move forward. And this is not, I always say I don't like the window dressing. Something happens, and then it's like all of a sudden, okay, we need to hire all these people and this, that, and the other. And then 2 years later, they're all gone. Or they, like Jacoby said, or they can't move up, in the organization, that type of thing. So we have to really be cognizant of making sure that people are able to move along the way they should, in the way they want to, and have that support.
Awesome, awesome. Our last thing, I think Juneteenth, when I think of Juneteenth, I think of a big celebration. And so I'm gonna put you two on the spot. What song reminds you of this weekend? What is your playlist? If you can recommend one song for this weekend for folks to celebrate, please let us know. So for me, Marilyn, you kicked it off with Sounds of Blackness, Optimistic. Would be a song that I think of this weekend as we go into being optimistic, because to be optimistic, it means that you have put in some work and that you deserve a certain outcome. And I believe as a community, we are putting in the work and we deserve a certain outcome. And so please share with the people that are listening some just one song that you would add definitely to the playlist this weekend.
Oh, goodness. I have to think about it. I'm a big jazz person.
Okay.
So, it would have to be some jazz music, maybe from back in the day. Yeah, of course I can't, I could go and look at all my albums, but
I definitely, when you talk about jazz, I think Nina Simone, to be young, gifted and black, or Mississippi Goddamn, if
right, yeah,
those records are some
I would agree with those, yeah.
Jacoby?
Ooh, just one. Goodness. Well, you already mentioned one that I was going to mention. Well, not her rendition, because I love Nina Simone, but I was going towards, Mama Aretha.
Yeah,
I was going that route. But I know since you mentioned Nina Simone and Marilyn, you did jazz, I guess I can give some of the contemporary scholars a little something. So I'd have to go with Beyonce's Lift Every Voice and Sing. That's going to be on my playlist. Riding to where I'm going this weekend, because after I get out the car, it might get a little ratchet, but we'll do the celebration in the car. We'll do ratchet in community. So, yeah.
Awesome. I want to say thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Jacoby, so much for joining this conversation. I'm sure we can talk on and on about what this day means to us individually and collectively as a community. Thank you all so much for joining in this Juneteenth conversation hosted by AIDS United's Southern HIV Impact Fund. We again want to say happy birthday to AIDS United, who is turning 10 this year. For more information about the Southern HIV Impact Fund, please visit us at southernfund.org for more information. Again, thank you so much, and please have a safe and celebratory weekend. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.